Well, good morning, folks. First week of accountability and leadership. Just a few things to go over in terms of the class and what to expect. Uh, the class is set up pretty much like most other classes you've taken, I'm sure. Uh, One thing that's a bit different, your your weekly assignments due on Sundays tend to be PowerPoints for this class as opposed to a paper. Until you get to your final paper, of course. And then that is a APA style paper. While you're doing your PowerPoints, be sure to read the instructions and follow those closely. There's you have to do 10 slides, minimum of 10 slides, maximum of 15, not including your title page or your reference slide. Even though you're doing PowerPoint, you still need to cite and use proper APA style in the PowerPoint slides. So make sure you spell and grammar check your slides before you submit them as well. That's really about the only wrinkle in the class. Be sure and read all the announcements this first week, as well as your syllabus. Wednesday, you have a introductory video to do to introduce yourself to your classmates as well as to me. And you can read about me in my profile, which is in the class. This is a fairly interesting class, I think. It really covers two areas of study: accountability and ethics. You'll find the class textbook, the Buston book, is about accountability. You'll also note that this is not a scholarly work. It's anecdotal based on Buston's experience as a consultant, I guess, over a number of years. So keep that in mind. I would expect as you read through this and write about or respond to things about accountability, you'll be challenging what Buston writes about by looking for journal articles that either support or disprove his claims. I'm sure I've not really spent much time in the accountability side of things. I spent a fair amount of time in the ethics side, but not as much on accountability, looking to see what the current thought process, current research is out there. But I would encourage you to do that. As we go through the course, I'll be doing that some, just to get up to speed with what's current. And I also will be trying to prove or disprove what Buston's saying. That's how we grow and learn in the field. So I would expect that's what you're doing. You'll find a number of handouts or resources each week. They tend to deal more with ethics, and I think most of them are pretty good handouts. Some pretty good topics, some very interesting. I think you'll find very provocative and thought-provoking for you. But again, be out there looking at journal articles through the school library to find out what current research is and what are people looking at? What are they talking about? What do they think is important to be researching in terms of ethics? Ethics is a huge field. It really encompasses all of our life, but we're going to be looking at it from a leadership standpoint. And one of the things you'll run into in class is an article by Joanne Suila. She's one of my favorite ethics authors and researchers. This is one of her books. I highly recommend it. And then this is also Ethics, the Heart of Leadership. This is an edited volume she did, so she brings a number of thought leaders into it. You can see all my tabs, so obviously I think there's a lot in here that's important. This is a very, very good book. I would highly recommend you invest in this. Ethics, the Heart of Leadership, edited by Joanne Suila. And then this is another edited volume. She was a co-editor for The Quest for Moral Leaders. And it's, again, a number of thought leaders have contributed to it. And again, I would highly recommend that as well. There are a number of other people, ethicists out there writing these days. You'll find a lot of work coming out of the Jesuit universities. They almost all of the Jesuit universities have a dedicated effort towards ethics, and there's a lot of good work coming out of them. If you have a look at the website for Santa Clara University up in Santa Clara, California, that group writes a fair amount about ethics. And one of the big topics in ethics is, can ethics be taught? Certainly ethics can be taught about, but can you teach someone to be ethical? Highly debated. The folks up at Santa Clara firmly say, yes, you can. I'm not convinced they found the way to do it, but I do agree that there's got to be a way to teach people to be ethical. Otherwise, we're kind of wasting our time. But I don't think we have a solution. A number of professional groups deal with ethics. I happen to be a licensed CPA, so I'm reportable to, and a member of the American Institute of CPA, so I'm reportable to that group, which has a ethical code of conduct. I'm also reportable to the State Board of Accountancy in California and Ohio, and they have ethics requirements. I'm currently in the process of researching if there's any beneficial effect or any measurable effect for the ethics requirement. We have to take a certain number of continuing education units each licensing period addressing ethics. My thesis is that hasn't made a bit of difference, but that's what I'm researching to see if it has. Again, we tend to be teaching about ethics, and it seems to be a bit elusive how we should teach, how we can effectively teach people to be ethical. So as you go through the course, if you've not been exposed to ethics and ethical thought processes, this will be a new experience for you and hopefully a beneficial one. If you have in the past, hopefully this will help refine it. We're not going to spend a lot of time on classical ethics and the various ethical styles out there or methodologies. I would encourage you to research that. There's the history of ethics is I find quite interesting, and it started in antiquity and it has grown through the ages. But there are a number of philosophies or styles or types of ethical reasoning and thought, and I think it gives you a good base if you're really interested in ethics. If ethics is an area you really want to pursue, then you definitely need to get that foundation so that you understand what's brought us to the point we're at, and then you are, I think, better able to analyze what's going on now and jump into the pool in the deep end and be able to tread water as you work through some ethical thought issues that are current. So that's really the course in a nutshell. Hopefully you find it thought provocative and interesting and helpful as you move forward. Again, ethics is a huge thing, a huge area of scholarly work, and in our day and age, because of some of the issues, there's been a lack of ethics in leadership, in businesses and social organizations and governments. Maybe not so much that that's a new thing, but it seems to be over recent years, the last 15 years or so, more something that we've shined a spotlight on, and we now have different expectations, I think. So we'll look at some of those more current, more recent things that have brought about the current emphasis of ethical thought and ethical requirement. We'll look at some of the legislation, some of the rules-based things that have come about because of ethical failures, and those are things to consider. Does a rule-based system really work? Again, my professional licensing requires that I follow certain ethical rules. Does that make me ethical? Does it inspire me to be ethical? Those are, I think, all questions we always need to be asking. Are the things we're doing to provide for an ethical environment, really accomplishing that. And at the core, are people really being ethical? What makes people ethical? What makes people act and behave ethically? What things don't? What things contribute to a lack of ethics? There's a study a few years ago that said that because of the cognitive nature of how we go through a day, ethical decision making wanes after about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the folks who did the research concluded that therefore you should not have meetings or be in situations where you're requiring deep ethical decision making after 2 o'clock, because it wanes and you're not going to get the best ethical decision. So there's work like that, because we're really trying to understand how do we tick? How does this all work? How do you really develop ethics when you have different cultures that view things differently, when people view things differently? We live in this postmodern world, which is fairly relativistic. It's very tough to have a common ethic when people are relativistic. If I get to decide what's good for me, that means I get to decide my ethics. My ethics may not be the same as your ethics. They may not come together and be a good ethic for a society. So those are the kind of things that we wrestle with in the field of ethics these days. I think it's fun to wrestle with that. I think it'd be a lot more fun if we could come to some conclusion and figure this all out, but I don't think that'll ever quite happen. There'll always be a quest, as Joanne writes about with her folks in this quest for moral leadership. It's a quest. It's a search. It's a journey. And now you're on it in this class. So the class is pretty basic. You'll generally have discussions due. You post on Thursdays, your replies by Sundays. Make sure you're citing your work appropriately and giving your references. Make sure you're using your APA manual to get your citations and your references in the right format and using them correctly. And then, of course, you've got the weekly assignment due on Sundays. If you have any questions, please send me an email. I will respond as quickly as I can. And it just depends on where I'm at any point during my day, just as it would be for you. If it's at a time when I can address it, I'll quickly answer your email. If I'm not around my computer, it may take me a bit of time to get whatever resources I need to answer your question. If that's not necessary, you'll get a quick reply as long as I have the time available. At a minimum, each evening, I will reply to emails if I haven't already during the day. I live in California, so I work on that time zone. So my evening starts at about 5 o'clock Pacific time, and am generally around my computer till about 8:30 in the evening. And then after that, I check things in the morning. I tend to be an early riser, so we'll address a few things early in the morning as well. But even though I'm on the West Coast, remember our school is on the East Coast, so all time requirements in terms of submitting assignments are Eastern time. Minute before midnight is a minute before midnight Eastern time, not any of our particular time zones. So keep that in mind. The Moodle the Canvas server is the clock that matters, and it runs on Eastern time. So just remember, when you're submitting assignments, it's when it's accepted by that server, not when you think you submitted it. The way to keep from having issues is don't wait till the last minute to submit. Give yourself plenty of cushion. Prioritize your doctoral work so that you're getting things in on time and not up against the time crunch. You'll enjoy it more, you'll get more out of it, you'll produce better work, and you won't have hassles about assignments being turned in late and not getting points for them. Again, be sure and read through your syllabus, read through all the announcements that are posted. They're there to help guide you through the class. Some give you some resources, some tell you what our operating procedures are for the class. Be sure you read all of those and understand them. And again, if you have questions at any point, send me an email. We'll be doing these Moodles once a week. We have them scheduled for the first 5 weeks. We'll see how it goes after that. In all likelihood, we'll have them at least in week 6, probably week 7 as well, as you prepare for your final paper. So you're not required to join the live Zoom meeting, but you do need to watch them, the recorded versions, which will be posted in the announcements each week. All right, well, we'll leave it at that. Good luck with the class. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get a lot out of it. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. And good luck in your first week.